Well, I remember when we came back from the diagnosis, and I just, was very silent on the way home. Um, and it wasn't until I got into the house, I just dropped to the floor and just started crying. That vision is all kind of in my head, um, kind of the catalyst that started off everything, and this is the journey that I'm going to be on.
Yes. To offer some context for Jeffrey's response, he was diagnosed in April of 2018. And we had been spending probably 6 to 8 months working on trying to find out what was going on for him. So getting to that point was, first of all, a miracle to be able to come to that point so quickly. And we were, though we never expected that we would come to that particular diagnosis, it ended up being a blessing, if you can possibly imagine, for our family. For several years before the diagnosis, I had noticed a lot of changes in Jeffrey that I misinterpreted as signs of, a changing dynamic in our relationship. And we were really in trouble. Our relationship was really in trouble. And I didn't know for how much longer we would actually be together. And when it became known to us that Jeffrey was also experiencing similar challenges at work as he was at home, that's when we started to say, well, maybe this isn't under his control. This is something that we have to investigate. And that's when we began our medical investigation. And we're so thankful to his employer for valuing him as they did and giving us that opportunity to really dive in and explore what was going on. The day of the diagnosis was really tough. We went on April 25th. Our appointment was moved up from sometime in May, and we were hoping, well, maybe the doctor wants to see us sooner so we won't have to worry about what it could be. And, honestly, the diagnosis was just as hard for her to deliver as it was for us to hear. And though Jeffrey was silent in, his reception of the diagnosis, I felt something very different. This had been many years of anger, resentment, frustration with someone who wasn't behaving and contributing and functioning in the way that he had so well for so many years. And I remember having, prayed and prayed and prayed to, take away the anger, take away the frustration. And when we finally got the diagnosis, all of that anger, hatred, frustration, it went away. Because in that moment, it became so clear that what I had been so angry about was not in his control. And that then gave rise to a new beginning for us and for our family. And so, not everyone who has cognitive issues is going to arrive at this diagnosis. And for that, we are so thankful. But for us, it did, and it did give us a different perspective. And we chose to look at this as a new beginning. And that's a hard choice to make because of the statistics, because a neurologist is not able to tell you, yes, we have a pill for that, and we expect a cure to happen. We expect him to be well again very shortly. They can't do that right now. So it's a very difficult thing to make a choice to say, okay, well, this is what it is, and we can spend our time being sad and angry and questioning why is this happening, or we can do what we can to control how we live, and live with great intention and purpose. And honestly, that should be, the hope for all of us, whether or not we have a diagnosis of any incurable disease or not. And that's really part of why we have this mission, is to raise awareness for those affected with the disease, to have people understand that this is not a disease of the elderly, and that if you are having some memory challenges, or we call them, I have a senior moment, to take that a little more seriously. It doesn't mean that you have Alzheimer's, so we're not here to frighten people into thinking, oh my gosh, I have a senior moment. I mean, we do forget things. But to have it checked out, get yourself a baseline, and then to make some changes for yourself so that you can live a more brain-healthy lifestyle, so that hopefully this never affects you in the future.
So you had seen the changes. Jeff, did you see or feel like you were changing or undergoing something different?
Yes, I definitely knew there was something going on, to the point where I was trying to figure it out. I was like, I just don't feel like myself. But I would wake up in the morning and just say, off to work, and I'd go, but I really wasn't going to work. I was trying to figure out what's going on with me. She didn't even know at that point.
Yeah.
So it was like a couple of days going by like that, and I was just trying to figure it out, like what's going on with me. I know it's something a little more than normal, so there was a couple of days I was just trying to figure out what's going on with myself, but I just wasn't communicating to her what was going on.
Yeah, as a guy, I admit, we're not the best at communicating. Were you afraid to bring up, what you were feeling?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I was, because at some point I was saying like what the heck is going on here? It's just weird. I just figured I could just kind of shove it off or whatever. But when I realized that there was something more to that, it was kind of scary a little bit. It's kind of like, but I don't want to upset you, or what. I was trying to figure it out myself, I'm glad that at least I was trying to do that, but it was, I needed some support on some stuff, and. Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about noticing changes. Well, what kinds of changes did he notice, or did I notice? And we have always had a really good communication system. And I could tell over the past few years, communication became really difficult for us. There was miscommunication. There was a lot of repetition. There was, no, I didn't say that. I meant this, or I said this. So it became really challenging. You also have to understand that Jeffrey is someone who's a doer, right? He takes initiative. He's extremely committed to his family, his home, his work, his relationships. And I noticed that things that he initiated around the house were not being done. He would withdraw more than engage with us. He would forget certain things. And with 3 young children, I'm reminding people of things all the time. So when it came to, now I have to remind him, or I have to let him know things that he honestly, as an adult and having lived in our home as long as he did, it would be reasonable to expect that he would know it. Where did that come from? It took a long time for him to process something. It took a long time for him to complete a very basic task. Learning new information, like at work, a new system, right, that came on board. Learning new things is very, very challenging for someone with memory challenges. So that became a real issue for him, and it started to affect his performance. And Jeffrey had been at his place of employment for 17 years and was valued for his contributions and was one of the most senior people in that particular department. So when the performance shortcomings were starting to come up, that's when people were saying, that's not like him. That's not like him. What's going on there? And thankfully, the question was asked. And we were then able to look at it through a different perspective, not just a relationship problem, but, okay, this might be a medical issue that he's having that is causing this both here at home and at work.
How did your 3 kids handle the news?
They're still handling it. We made the decision to first process the news ourselves. And we got counseling for the way to approach explaining this to children. And so our children they understand that Jeffrey has a disease that will affect his memory and his functioning. We started out our conversation with the acknowledgement that you've probably been noticing some changes. And you've probably been noticing some more arguing, frustration. You've probably been noticing that. And that is real. But what we just found out is the underlying reason why all of this is happening. To some extent, our children were relieved. I remember my son watching a program about a young child that was dealing with divorce, parents who were divorcing. And my son muttered under his breath, that would be the worst thing that ever happened to me. And I remember taking note of, that comment and thinking, wow, for our family, that would be the worst thing for our children. And so while we delivered the news that, yes, this is something that is ongoing, there's no cure at this time for this disease, we then also folded into it that we were going to be renewing our wedding vows within the month, and that the children would also be part of that ceremony and would also have their own vow, that though this is going to be hard, much harder than we can even imagine it right now, we are going to do this, and we called it Alz Together, ALZ Together. And that's why with our Bright Side tour, we called our tour Alz Together on the Bright Side. And so the children are exceptionally patient and kind and respectful. They themselves have slowed themselves down a bit, which is very helpful and facilitates functioning for all of us in the household. But they're still dealing with it. It's one thing as an adult to experience changes in yourself, and as a care partner to witness those changes. It's quite another for a young child to see those changes. But they are resilient and loving, and they have actually taken this notion of looking at things on the bright side. They've often expressed, we would wish that Dad didn't have this, but because he has this, we get to see him every single day when we come home. We get to spend time with him. We get to shoot hoops. We get to, do things that a lot of kids don't have the opportunity to do with their parent right now. So we're constantly trying to look at things in that perspective, and then are left with nothing but feeling blessed.
And you mentioned before that with this, a lot of hardship came, but also a lot of joy also came from it. Can you tell me about what you did as a family together? Not many people go out there and buy a bus and travel around. Yeah, can you tell me what you guys did?
Sure. Do you want to take any of this?
Not right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in that moment of being in the kitchen and kind of, why us? And, what did we do wrong? And what are we going to do? And, the fear and the fear of having people find out. There's this stigma around this disease that somehow it makes you less than, and yes, certain things of you are being taken away, but we made a decision right then and there to say, if we focus on what we're losing, we're not going to make it. None of us will. So we're going to try our best to focus on what this can offer us as a family, as people who are growing. And so Jeffrey has always wanted to travel the country. He's always wanted to visit the national parks with his family. I always had this crazy notion of, wouldn't it be kind of cool to convert a school bus? I love tiny house living shows, and I love the notion of being happy with less. And the nostalgia with taking something that's old, that is no longer in use, and bringing new life to it. And then we started to think, well, if we want to travel, the best way to travel for someone with memory challenges is to have a consistent environment. So we tried to travel, staying in hotels, hopping from one thing to another. It was extremely disorienting for Jeffrey. Where do I put my toothbrush? Where's my jacket? Where's this, right? When you create a consistent environment for someone, as long as he gets on that bus, whether we're in Arizona or Florida or Maine, he's home. So he knows where things are. So that was that was one of the, okay, that could work. And then we decided, well, let's figure out a way to make this bigger than just us, right? How can we do that? Well, we love the color purple. Let's paint the bus purple to give a nod to the Alzheimer's Association. And there's nothing that attracts attention than a 30-foot purple bus as you're driving through all these kinds of towns. And people, the best way to get engagement is for people to become curious. What's that about? Oh, this. And we show them the bus and, and then the follow-up question is, well, why'd you do this? And when we say that this is in honor of my husband and his journey, and we hope to share information, inspire awareness and involvement to find a cure. And you just get people are just, what? Wow. On so many different levels. The wow is for so many different levels. But so in December of last year, I had been searching, and learning about how does one even buy a school bus. So I had been doing a lot of research, asking a lot of questions, and we found this bus in Maryland. And we have a little video of all 5 of us with our dog around the telephone doing a PayPal, transfer for our deposit on the school bus around Christmas. So it was our Christmas gift to embark upon this journey. And we didn't have all that we needed to make it come true, but we had whatever we had. We put everything that we had into doing it and having faith that we would make it through. And sure enough, faith and the wonderful support and generosity of our community and strangers on the internet, just people who became so engaged and enthused about what we were trying to do, helped to make it happen. We're so thankful.
I'm sure the kids must have loved that. Where did you guys go?
So we went, we started, you want to, yeah. Do you want to say where we went?
No, I can't remember where we were.
Okay. We started thinking in the very beginning that our first trip we were going to head out to the Grand Canyon. Well, last summer was
That's what I wanted.
Right, and of course that's what Jeffrey still wants to do, and so we shall. Yes. That was a bit much for our maiden voyage. Everyone had to adjust to 140 square feet for 5 adult-sized people, a dog, and no air conditioning. So we thought better of going to Arizona in July at that time. So we thought, well, let's stay a little closer to home. So we focused our travels in the New England area. So we went up through New Hampshire, we went up through Vermont, then up to Maine and Acadia. So we got a national park. We went to Acadia in Maine, and then we traveled back down did a little pit stop at home, and then went on to Cape Cod. So last summer we traveled in total 5 weeks on the bus. Our longest consecutive journey was 3 weeks altogether on the bus. And one would think the kids would love it. There were mixed emotions about the bus. So, these are young adults that have their own preferences, that need their own privacy, that, yes, are very supportive of what we're doing, but I think the reality of what we were doing hit them the night before. And my son, again, it was very funny. He said, "Mom, most parents just say they're going to do stuff. We actually have a bus in our driveway ready to go. Like, you actually made it happen," which I think is a wonderful lesson for them to learn and to have. So we had quite a bit of adjusting to do on the bus. We also learned that we are nature light people. We love watching nature programs. We love, wow, that's beautiful. But when we actually get out there to do it, we're like, that's really nice. Okay. And then we want to get back on the bus. And many times we found with the kids that we would park someplace. And Jeff and I remember camping when we were much younger and couldn't wait to get to like the playground and the pool. And our kids were like, no, we're cool here. We like it on the bus. And we thought, maybe we made this too comfortable. It's not like rustic enough. And it's true. The bright side, when you do come aboard, it really does feel like a tiny house on wheels. It has a very homey feeling to it. So everybody was very comfortable just to hang out. And that was fine, too. So our expectations of us being, the wild nature explorers, well, they had to shift and adjust. And I think that's also part of what we're learning. We thought we were going to do Grand Canyon the first out. Okay, so that didn't work out. So we do this instead, and we put that kind of in the future. Mm-hmm. So we hope to continue our journey and continue making it out west. Jeffrey definitely would love to go to the Grand Canyon and see that with our kids. Arches is another one, and Yellowstone is Davis's preferred national park.
We have them in our calendar.
Yes, that's right. We have a map in our house.
Yeah.
We have a map of the United States and all the state parks, and we have thumbtacks, pins, and all the ones that everyone wants to go to. So we'll work to do that.
The last thing the doctor said to me is, you're healthy, and just live your life. Remember he was saying that, just live your life, you're healthy, you have your kids and everything, and just keep pushing and just doing it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It seems an odd thing to say you're healthy. By every other metric, Jeffrey is probably in his mid or early 40s, and he is 53. And he looks younger now than he did when I married him, which is so unfair.
Right.
This happens with Clairol. That, no. So for us, I do a lot of thinking about what next. I do a lot of thinking about, well, how can I get him into some clinical trials? What is the most, what is part of our treatment plan for him? It's meditation, it's exercise, it's learning new things. The opportunity to come here today is part of our treatment plan. It's something that he's never done before. It's something new. We learned something new, and that is really meaningful for someone who has memory challenges. So we actively seek out those opportunities to meet new people. Part of the travel and meeting these new people is that Jeffrey gets to explain to them something that he really knows. This is my bus. This is my family. This is why we're doing it. But we still encounter and meet different people. So social engagement is really, really important. Diet is another very important aspect of Jeffrey's treatment plan, as is sleep. So for us all, we're learning more and more about the importance of sleep and what that does for cognitive function and repair. And so Jeffrey and I have a pretty strict schedule for bedtime and waking, and we really try and keep to that as best we possibly can. So that, makes life less spontaneous in terms of, if we're going to go out or do something different, but we're doing the best that we can. But yes, his neurologist said, go, live your life, do everything that you want to do, and, keep moving forward. And that's what we're going to do.
So we're almost out of time, but what would your message be for other individuals or families going through something similar that your family is going through?
I would say don't wait. If people are in that situation that we were in, they're kind of like, we don't know what to do with it, get some support right away. It's the best thing I could say to kick it off.
A lot of people will avoid going and getting information about this for themselves because they're afraid. What if I have it? What if I have it? And the knowing is so much better than not knowing. So people have asked, why would you want to know if there's no cure? Why would you want to? And the reason is that, well, Jeffrey didn't lose his job, right? So we thankfully have certain benefits because he wasn't fired from his job for poor performance. That's one. Two is our marriage is still intact and growing. Many people who deal with this in silence or on their own, they suffer the loss of really important relationships in their lives because their behavior is misunderstood, even by themselves. So there's that. You can keep the relationships that you have that you'll need for this battle ahead. And the last one completely escapes me now. Yes, so that does happen. But, that's it. Jeffrey was feeling so horrible about himself. There was a certain degree of self-loathing that was happening. He wouldn't bring it to me because he was so angry at himself. When you get a diagnosis, that can stop. That self-loathing, that anger can stop. And you can approach things from a very different perspective. And so, we now will, identify when it's happening. Okay, it's happening. Okay, let's move on, right? It's not anything that Jeffrey has to feel badly about or ashamed of or angry at himself over. And then that changes our whole dynamic of how we live together. So that's what I would really say for people who are dealing with this. Even if you're just having some sort of mild memory challenges, talk to your doctor. Get a baseline cognitive assessment just in your doctor's office. And you'll likely come out feeling reassured that, whew, okay, I'm actually doing better than I thought. And if not, then you can catch it in time to really save the things in your life that are important to you and maybe embark on a new journey.